Hey guys, and welcome back to another Guild Wars 2 guide. This time we're going to be talking a little bit more about Ascended Armor. If you watched my last guide, you know how tedious and painstaking that process can be. This guide is going to cover what happens when you want to try out a different stat type. There is a way in-game to change those stats, and it actually doesn't cost that much. This guide is just going to cover the basic switching of stats, at least in the beginning, but if you're after some of those Heart of Thorns exclusive stat sets, watch on because I'm going to cover something that makes those a little bit easier to attain. Anyway guys, let's get started. Okay, so first of all, if you are unfamiliar with Ascended Gear, I highly recommend you watch my last video on Ascended Gear, or at least educate yourself on all that goes into making Ascended Gear so you can appreciate this process. Alright, so you're going to need a couple of things. First of all, you're going to need a piece of Ascended Gear or a Ascended weapon. Unfortunately, this process does not work on any of the trinkets. Next, you're going to need one Anthology of Heroes. This can be acquired from that vendor near the Mystic Forge in Lion's Arch, and that's going to cost you 10 Spirit Shards. I covered how to obtain Spirit Shards in my previous guide, so again, go ahead and give that a look if that sounds foreign to you. After that, you're going to need 5 globs of Ectoplasm. These can be bought off the auction house or salvaged from rare gear. And finally, you're going to need 1 Gossamer Insignia with the stats that you want. So for example, if you have a full set of Berserker's gear, but you just saw a build that you want to try out and that requires Knight's gear, for example, you're going to need a Knight's Intricate Gossamer Insignia. Once you have all 4 of these items, head over to the Mystic Forge and throw them in. It's literally that simple. Now this will destroy the original armor piece and all of its upgrades, so make sure that you've thought ahead before you throw your armor in there. So the obvious advantage here is that now you have the stats that you want without having to reforge that armor. At the same time, if you're reforging weapons, each stat type has a different color that corresponds to that ascended weapon. So maybe you don't want your greatsword to be red, but rather purple or blue. You can switch the stats to unlock that skin for your account, and then switch the stats back and transmute that color onto your sword. Alright, so from here on out, we're going to start talking about those Heart of Thorns exclusive stats and an easier way to obtain those. So if that's all you wanted was the switching of stats, well, thanks for watching, and I hope that worked out well for you. So with Heart of Thorns came a few new stat types. Unlike the previous stat types in Guild Wars 2, these actually have 4 attributes, rather than the usual 3. Those stats are Marauder, Crusader, Wanderer, Minstrel, Commander, Vipers, Trailblazer, and Vigilant. Unlike the stat combinations of Corteria, you can't just pick them from a drop-down list and select the one you'd like. Rather, you have to play the Heart of Thorns content in order to unlock these. Every map in Heart of Thorns has a currency assigned to it, and if you accumulate enough of those, there's a vendor that you can acquire these recipes from. It's going to require things like airship parts, beryllium, crystalline ore, and leyline crystals. You're going to have to farm these maps for a while if you want to save up enough of each of these resources to get the Ascended recipe. But you can also buy the exotic version for way less. Also, if World vs. World is more your thing, or if you have more progress in World vs. World than you do in Heart of Thorns and you want these stats right now, you can also pay a visit to your Heroics Notary. Now, this will require you to spend your World vs. World ability points on a specific track to unlock those items at that vendor, and you'll need to have a fair amount of proofs of heroics saved up. Also, because the World vs. World ability points are account bound, you can create a new character and just put all of the points into that track and use that character to make these kinds of transactions. Just make sure that you have at least 55 points to put into Provisions Master to unlock the Heart of Thorns recipes, sigils, and runes. So once you've chosen your method for obtaining this recipe, go ahead and get the exotic variety. The ingredients necessary to craft the exotic variety are nowhere near the requirements for the Ascended. Once you've got your exotic insignia, head over to the Mystic Forge and plug it into that formula I gave you at the beginning of the video. Just like that, your regular Ascended gear now has the new Heart of Thorns stats that you've always wanted them to have. So let's say you don't have any Ascended armor, but you want one of the new Heart of Thorns stats. I recommend picking one of the core Tyria Ascended gear types, crafting that first, and then converting it over to the new Heart of Thorns set. It may seem like a bit of a runaround, but I just feel like it's overall easier to obtain this way. The main difference between core Tyria Ascended insignias and that of Heart of Thorns is that instead of just 3 damask patches, you'll need 3 jeweled damask patches. The difference here that you're going to need 25 fulgurite. Fulgurite is made out of 1 obsidian shard, 1 bottle of airship oil, 1 pile of auric dust, and 1 leyline spark. Obsidian shards are easy enough to obtain, but the latter 3 are going to require you to play more Heart of Thorns content. Also, you're going to be farming these maps far more than you would have to for the exotic insignia for the Ascended insignia. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Heart of Thorns or you shouldn't want to play it, but personally, whenever I can help it, I prefer this game to be more of a fun experience than a chore. I actually wanted to switch my Mesmer over to Commander's gear to try sort of a chrono tank build, and I went about it the traditional way. I started farming these maps, and I got kind of burnt out. After doing some digging, I was delighted to find that all I had to do was convert my Berserker's gear over, saving me time and peace of mind. Anyway guys, that's all I have to say about Ascended Armor and converting the stats over. I'd be curious to see what you think about converting to Heart of Thorns stats versus just building them outright. I hope you guys found this guide informative or helpful. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.